Hello and welcome back to another What the Falk Sunderland review show as we try and make sense of Sunderland 2, Plymouth Argyle 2 and two vital points dropped in the chase for automatic promotion. To join me as ever is our evergreen regulars. First and foremost, it is David Lawrence. Dave, I know the answer to this, but how are we doing? You all right?
Yeah, all good, mate. Try and offer a bit of nuance and a bit of balance to the weekend's developments. But yeah, all good. Sun has just decided to come out for the last 20 minutes of the day. So happy days.
Starting it. Joined also by Peter, who's in Sunderland this week, in Hetton. All right?
Hello, in God's own country in Hetton until about 3 o'clock in the morning tomorrow when I head off to Pontyland Airport to go to Shanghai for Chinese New Year. So I'll be watching that Borough game at about, I think, 7 in the morning.
Oh, I've done that before in America. It's never nice. Not
Weird,
if you get beat.
weird,
If you win, it's good because you can just crack the beers open.
Yeah.
Nice and early, but when does that really happen? When you want it to happen?
I'm sure that'll go down really well in my mother-in-law's house. I mean, I don't drink to start off with, but if I was cracking beers open at 7 in the morning, living room, she might be asking some questions.
She might be, but it would be questions.
Not that I'd understand all of them because my Chinese is rubbish, but we'd get by.
Before we begin, going to be honest, we've probably spent much of this weekend discussing whether we actually wanted to even do the pod, let alone the episode. And I don't think we're alone in this. So it happened with Woke Report. I've seen it happen with Wiseman saying, part of me sort of awaiting it to happen to the newer podcasts that have been added to the already brilliant Sunderland content that us as fans all have. But like, we absolutely hate starting the podcast with this. Like, it does my nut in. We don't take ourselves too serious, so we don't really want to do this. But we just want to quickly remind people that we do the podcast for free. It's for our love of Sunderland. It's to connect with people. It's to bond with people. And the millions of fans we have across the world, most of us are not local. Actually, the more percentage of us is less local than a couple that are like local and can go to games regularly. So most of us are exiles, quote unquote. And over the last fortnight, things have just got a little bit like silly. I think, you know, it's not been fun, and we do this for fun. Realistically, we don't make money from it at all. Not that that's ever been the case, but ultimately we do it for fun, and it hasn't been. We've been called pricks, arrogant pricks, wankers and idiots, and whilst all of those are true, we don't like hearing it. We do have, you know, and never have seen ourselves above anyone or below anyone, so don't treat us as so. And abusing any Sunderland podcast, to be honest, when it gets abusive, is unacceptable. And we're not talking about difference of opinion or not liking someone's contributors' opinions or debating something. You're all smart enough to understand and know what is and isn't fair and acceptable. So just do that. It'll be much better for you to do it, because I'm not here to be your therapist. So, you know, at the end of the day, we all love doing the podcast. We all feel very lucky to be accepted by a really nice community, which is 97, 98% of people. So if you like the pod, you know what? Thanks for being kind. Thanks for making me feel like it's worth doing over this weekend when I pretty much didn't really want to. And if you don't like the podcast, thanks for being really quiet, not abusing anyone, not saying out online and just shutting your gob. But in terms of like abuse, name calling and stuff like that, we don't do this. So Dave, you big baldy bastard, you ugly motherfucker, how are you feeling after the weekend's result?
It's not very often that I'm the optimistic one. I know I think you called the lads yesterday in the group a little bit reactionary, and I understand the frustration of it. But that's exactly what it is. It's frustration, and that's the standard that we've set ourselves, and that's a huge compliment. I understand people saying that Reggie isn't the most proactive in the world and whatever. To me, and I understand that chat, you do have to have plan B, plan C. They get paid decent amounts of money for that. But I think he is that meticulous in his work on the training ground throughout the week that he believes in it, and he believes in it for 90 minutes. And that's just a different opinion on it. You know, I do want him to have different ideas. I do want him to stick Kevin Kyle up top and just go route one for a bit. But it's 2025, as Paul Merson told Ollie Watkins the other day when he asked if he could play up front with Duran. And he's like, Ollie, it's 2025. You don't play with two centre forwards. Behave yourself. His head's on the chopping block. He didn't get it right yesterday. He's got about, 9 days on the training ground now before the next game. A huge game if you're from North Yorkshire. It's one of them. We've gained a point on Sheffield United. We know that Burnley and I can't believe that I'm being the positive one because I'm normally the miserable landlord. That was a bit of abuse that I got online, and it did affect me for a little bit, just quote unquote. You know, it's very easy to in the moment to say things which you kind of look back on and you go, did I really go there? Was it really that bad? Yeah, okay, Pato hasn't come off his line. There's a million different little points that you can pick up on that we see. And I would like to think, because they're professionals and because they earn a lot of money, that goes from Labrie to Dodds to Proctor to all the playing staff. I would like to think that they go away on Monday after their day off and work on that. That's how I envisage it works.
I think it was probably for me, and I'm pleased we've waited a bit. I know we waited for a different reason, but I'm pleased we were recording like more than 24 hours afterwards because we normally don't. We normally at least get in the next 12 hours or a few hours afterwards. I felt like yesterday's result was different to the other times we've duffed it because I said we cannot drop points against Plymouth. I don't think I've really changed on that in the context of the automatic promotion race. But if you told me it would get to, say, February, and it would be the first time I'd be disappointed with a lot of them, which we'll go through, and there's reasons to be disappointed. And when the expectations have been risen by these players that we can make automatics, and I believe we can, you're every right to feel let down when they show you a reason to believe that we can't. That's just like the way football is, really. But I'm pleased we've had time to like settle and think because now I'm a bit more like, look, there's a chance to turn things around. There's always a chance to turn things around up until you get to it's impossible. And I think those players have shown me enough this season that when they don't show up or when they don't do something right, they can respond. And I'm holding on to that bit of hope. Although I'm not going to lie and say that I think yesterday's result wasn't really damaging. But Pete, I'll bring you in because, I've talked a lot and no one wants that. It was a damaging result. Let's not deny it. It was a very Sunderland result, which we haven't really been that Sunderland this season. But it's not that much better 24 hours later. But there is a chance to fix it. We're in February, aren't we?
85 minutes on the clock yesterday, Graham, I said to myself as I was watching it, thinking, I'm happy here. I'm happy because of this. This is making me, this result, we're going to get away with this. It's going to make me happy. And as soon as I got that out of me mind into me mind, if you get that, because I wasn't saying it out loud. Otherwise, my father would have leathered us because I was watching it with him. I realised, they're going to be Sunderland, aren't they? They're going to be Sunderland. They're going to be Sunderland. It's 2 big points dropped. It's 2 big points dropped with performances from some of our top performers through the season who didn't put in the type of show that we know they can do. There must be a reason why he decided that it was time to play the most centrally defensive midfielder in the central defensive midfielder role against bottom of the table club. There must be something more than he needs a run out. Because I think if he needed a run out, you could have kept it the way it had been. Leave Dan Neil there, move Enzo Lafitte into Riggs' position, and you could have put Aushish on the left, and it would have been fine. I would have been happy with that. But he must have seen something that meant he wanted to put Samed in there, and I don't know. There was a lot of. It was very flat from a lot of players that are usually full of bubbles that give us stuff. I'm thinking about Job. Now, one of the brilliant things that Job gives Sunderland is he picks up that ball inside our half of the D and he drives at teams. There wasn't any of that. I don't think Dan Neil benefited from being moved further up. I think he's really settled into being that deeper lying player, and the performances we've seen from him over the previous weeks have showed that. I think a lot of the frustrations from them not having put games to bed like the Derby match and them constantly seeming to switch off after 85 minutes, I think that's got a lot of people. And honestly, I think from watching the post-match interview with Wilson Isidore, the players are well aware that they have absolutely dropped a massive bollock there. Now, being aware that you've dropped a bollock and understanding you've probably not made the greatest team selection from Labrie, and he hasn't. And look, I've been one of his biggest celebrators this season. And just before the match, I'm saying, I love Reggie Labrie. I love the football we play. I think I love the way he speaks. I love the way he conducts himself. He didn't get it right yesterday. And when he doesn't get it right, he's got to be dug out for it. But, you've got to remember, he's done canny well this year. We are still in catching distance of the top of the table, of the automatic spots. It was a bitter blow because of the chance that was opened up because of Sheffield United getting beat on the Friday night. But it just, yeah, we've got to put that into a bit of put it into a bit of context in the whole season. Still a long way to go yet. We go to Leeds, beat Leeds, or Leeds can play if Leeds and Burnley play a draw, and then we beat Leeds. It's all still very much there to play for. There are some questions to be asked around Patterson.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the lad needs to sit out for a little bit because I've been so concerned with his kicking of late. I think anybody who's watched Sunderland, whether you've watched it from a million miles away like me, or whether you've been in the Stadium of Light every week or home and away watching him, there's something wrong there with his kicking. You can't have a goalkeeper in the modern game who you cannot rely, especially not with the way Sunderland play with that. Like, if there's not an option on, play it back and we'll start the movement again. Because the goalkeeper has to be part of that. He's part of a 5-person pass and move at the back. And if you can't rely on the goalkeeper to kick, and honestly, the goalkeeper should be able to at least kick with both feet. But even when it's on his preferred left, distribution's just not there. Probably benefit from sitting one out. I don't think it would be too much of a knock to his confidence, but I think some of the comments about Patterson, about Patwood being, it's too far for me. But I mean, I was calling them worse than rotten when the second one went in. I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But I think after a little bit of time and looking at it now, still a good goalkeeper. He hasn't become a rubbish goalkeeper overnight. He was still a goalkeeper that not so long ago was being touted with multi-million pound moves to Premier League clubs. He just isn't himself at the moment, or he isn't at it at the moment, and they need to do something about that. But I don't know. I mean, it does make me wonder what they do on the training pitch with him as a goalkeeper coach, because you would think you would have him pinging balls under pressure from defenders. But I don't know. I'm not a goalkeeping coach.
Well, we discussed Pato a few weeks ago, and he came back and he got 3 clean sheets, made a really good save against Derby, and
exactly. He's made some beautiful saves. I still think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. There is something wrong though at the moment.
I think we maybe came across wrong when we discussed it the other week that I was indicating that Pato wasn't a good goalkeeper, which wasn't really the case. My point was I feel like this team is progressing and Pato's not matching that level of progression with it, and unfortunately, we've discussed his kick, and what let me down yesterday was his goal. There's been a few screenshots that have gone out of Pato's positioning, the defence's positioning. I hate saying it because I'm a big fan, but I think there's questions around Luke O'Nien's form at the moment. I don't think that's good enough either. I don't think it's happened too often with Patterson for it not to be discussed, and that's not me saying he's a bad goalkeeper. Let's get him shipped out and put him on the first plane to whichever team in Europe wants him. I don't think that's the case, but I think in my opinion, I think it's difficult to do a podcast based on the game yesterday and what happened and the season as a whole and the context behind it and not mention Pato. At points, it looks to me like he's costing us points, and I know they're not direct errors. I don't think he's actually had any errors that have led to a goal in terms of like his mistake has caused a goal. But the eye test is very different. Him being glued to his line a few times has cost us this season, and he's won us points as well at points. But I also just feel at the moment that defence doesn't look like what it should be. You shouldn't be conceding 5 goals to the team that's bottom of the league. That's simply put. And I think the biggest frustration through all of this, and I'll come to you with this as well, Dave, there's probably quite different ends of a spectrum here because you've got people who are really frustrated and like, that's it, it's blown, this player's crap, that player's crap, because the world is reactionary. Especially social media and stuff like that, which is what a lot of us see because that's the modern world. And I do understand it because my biggest frustration in football is when somebody makes the same mistake again and again and again. It's my biggest bugbear in life, to be honest. It's why I wasn't always on the side of Jack Ross because I never felt he was going to learn from the mistakes he'd made, even though I liked the bloke and I thought he wasn't a bad manager. I felt Lee Johnson made continuously the same mistakes when he was manager. I feel the same with the players, and I'm seeing a lot of the same mistakes. I started thinking we're not conceding goals late. This is quite good, and then we concede a goal late. That's cost us 2 points in realistically a game that should have us across the line. And I think a lot of the frustration with results like that is we've seen a team that we feel is good enough for the automatic promotions, or at least having a good push at it. And we're seeing these other teams that do have more money, they do have deeper squads. They should realistically, based on their economics, be above us. And they are. But we're so close to them. And you're seeing these little things which are not mistakes because they've got more money or because they're a better team. It's like our own daft little mistakes. And that's the most frustrating part. Because I think when you're looking at should Sunderland be above Sheffield United, Burnley, and Leeds? Probably not on economics and probably not on squad strength. On starting 11, I think we can take on anyone, to be completely honest. But it's a long old season. And we're so close to it. And you just think if we like fixed our own little daft little mistakes, it wouldn't matter what they do or how much money they have and all that kind of stuff. So I do get the frustration, but then on the flip side, the other side of the argument is, bloody hell, how did we get here? You know what I mean? It's that meme, isn't it, from Little Britain? I fell. Like when he's up the tree. It's a little bit like that at points. But I do feel we're in a really healthy position. I do think, to be honest, yesterday's result is going to be looked back on as a moment where we knew we were going in the playoffs, if I'm completely honest, and that's me being a bit of a downer. But do I think we can win the playoffs? Yes, of course I do. There's not much that really bothers me over a one or two game legs or whatever it may be. I just feel like that probably was an indication, and there's been numerous indications of games where we can't kill off. Coventry, Millwall, missing two penalties against Burnley yesterday. I'm sure there's other examples. Plymouth away should have realistically been hanging on for at least a point, and we didn't. There's too many instances. I think Brad put something in the message in the WhatsApp group yesterday where I think compared to other teams, we're like well ahead of losing points. I think we've lost 11 points from the 85th minute onwards or something like that, or 75th minute onwards. And that's a continuous pattern that we've talked about time and time again. And sadly, it isn't fixing. But Dave, look, we'll move on to something else because the world is not doom and gloom. We're fourth in the championship. Things have been worse. Like we just feel we're so close to it being so much better. And as a football fan, you do get frustrated when you don't beat Plymouth at home because of your own stupid mistakes. And look, Plymouth were worthy of a point. I don't want to take anything away from Plymouth. We're well worthy of a point. If anyone should have won that game, to be honest, it probably should have been Plymouth. But Dave, we'll move on before I get myself really frustrated.
Well, before you move on, people have to realise football's such a game of fine margins, like really, 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 really fine margins. Now, we can all see about we should have picked up this point, losing positions, and that is something that needs addressing. But that will get addressed when players become older and more experienced. They are such a young group of players, and you have to take that into account. You have to take into account the positive to this whole scenario is they are keeping in touch with Burnley, Sheffield United, and Leeds. You could argue that we played Burnley off the park in the second half the other week. Luke O'Nien was fantastic. And the reason for that is because Burnley come out and they try to put a little bit of pressure on, and Luke can run between the lines. Now, Luke hasn't got a higher experience than where he's at the minute. It's as simple as that. If you look throughout the playing squad, who actually does? Chris Mepham? Yeah, I'll give you that. Wilson Isidore? Possibly, a little bit. Then other than that, they are at the highest of where they've ever been. Simple as that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, brand new recruit. And he's been played out of position for a little bit of balance. Because he's that good, and we can see that already. He is a fantastic footballer. But realistically, this squad is at the highest it's ever played at professionally. And it will go on and get better. It might not be with Sunderland Football Club, but it will get better. The players within it will get better. Of course, yes, Mepham might not get any higher anymore. Luke O'Nien might not get any higher unless he gets to the Premier League with Sunderland, so on and so forth. But can I see Pato playing in the Premier? Yeah, I can. He's got parts of his game that he needs to address. I appreciate that. But you've got to take everything. If we get promoted in the automatics by the end of the season by 1 point, that Plymouth point looks miraculous. That's how much of a fine line it is. And you have to also appreciate this is a multi-billion-pound game nowadays. And that multi-million-pound game, you have to give oppositions credit as well. So if you can nullify what Luke O'Nien gives to Sunderland Football Club, you've got to give them credit. It's not just the fact that Luke O'Nien has not been as good as we expect him to be. Has he got the ceiling, the intelligence, the experience to face a low block? Probably not. He's he has been part of that low block. He was at Wickham under Ainsworth and whatever, and playing that low block. Look at how his game's developed, that even I think that he's a very good footballer now. And everything, it's not just about Sunderland Football Club. We all wanted to think that it's about Sunderland Football Club because we love them. We love them passionately. And I'm sure people will listen to my little rant here and go, do you want to know something? Yeah, well, I do love Sunderland Football Club. But you have to remember, it's a professional game where you have to take other mitigating factors into account. And Plymouth came, they had a job, they're going to get a response. How many times do we see it in football over the decades, over the years? You get trounced 5-0, you have to come out. You have to come out and show a bit of pride and a bit extra this and that. And we're probably the perfect team to play against because you drop really low, you play 4-5-1, you look the ball on the top of us because, funnily enough, Chris Mepham hasn't become a 6'5" monster who suddenly is the best centre-half in the air in the world. Because he's not. He's not Virgil van Dijk, and that's why he doesn't play for Liverpool. Luke O'Nien, he's like 5'9". He wins his fair share of headers, but you put a 6'3" centre midfielder, winger against him, numerically, he's going to lose the battle. So we do have to give other people credit as well as criticising ourselves. And I think it's all about balance. And that's one thing I'm pretty proud of what we do here and what we talk about. It's 4 lads with different opinions. There's only 3 of us today. But sat round a bar table, having a beer, and someone goes, do you want to know something? That actually is a good point. How about this? How about that? And that's where we are.
The best part about this entire rant that you've just had, Dave, is I disagree with you completely. I think we should be beating Plymouth, and that's that. That's the end of that one. So I think you're talking shite. We need to be beating Plymouth. Not a fan. I think they're bottom of the league for a reason. Luke O'Nien and Chris Mepham should not be getting beat by another man that plays for Plymouth. No offense to them. Anyway, one person I thought was really good, Dave, and I'll stick with you on this one. I thought Enzo Lefebvre was really good yesterday, but I think we can quite clearly see he's got lots of quality and we can quite clearly see he's got like a lots of talent. He's playing on the left wing. And funnily enough, I wish Brad was on this because Brad's made a couple of good points in the WhatsApp group recently. When he came in, Reggie said he can play 6, he can play 8, he can play 10. He never said he could play the 11. You can quite clearly see there's a man who wants to like pick the lock, be the key or whatever it is they call it these days, and open up championship defences. And yesterday he opted to keep him on the wing again, so he could facilitate a defensive midfielder that I'm not going to criticise Salas because I think it's 2 games. I don't think it's enough to see him, but all he really did yesterday was pass it sideways and backwards, which is what you want a defensive midfielder to do, but you don't need it against Plymouth. Stick that if you want to change things up a bit and rest Riggy, which I think we've said we think Riggy probably needs a rest. Like stick Mayendo on the wing or something like that. You know, keep Daniel in your deep lying role because you can probably get away with Daniel playing deeper as we have most of the season against a team that's just been whacked 5-0 and get Lefebvre in the middle. So when you go, these are going to come out low block and they're going to be defensive and they're going to battle for every ball because they've just been whacked 5-0 at home. They've got to show themselves as a brand new manager here as well. They've got to show that they want to play for this guy. You get an Enzo Lefebvre, which on paper is one of the better midfielders in the league, especially based on reputation and stuff like that. And we've already seen what he can do with a football. Get him in the middle and get him picking the lot and get him like opening up defences with his skill and his quality. Don't put him on the wing and make him have to run 30, 40 yards to get anywhere near the box. Why is Regis Lebris, Dave, in your opinion, signing this player who's a game changer and placing him just in a position that he quite clearly doesn't play?
I think, and if everyone remembers rightly, I was the one who said that I thought he would play him on the left wing against Burnley. And I think the basic premise of it is Reggie Lebris just thinks he's head and shoulders above anything else in this league and can adapt to wherever. And that's what I think it is. Of course, again, that's not taken into account that sometimes Sunderland can be seen as a bit of an FA Cup final. Let's get in their faces, and raise your levels because of who you're playing. And that's going to be the same with Lafay, to be honest. People are going to see him as, oh, this bloke's coming here. He's absolutely fantastic. He ain't getting past me today. It's really weird with Samed playing yesterday. It almost lends itself to like a 4-1-3-2 and quite narrow. And that midfield three of Lafay, Bellingham, and Neil in front of Samed. Because Samed is, I watched him, I was there for the Stoke game. And I thought to myself, ratting and getting the ball back, you are going to be a player. You're not fit enough, but you're going to be a player. But, my God, you can't play football. It's 5 or 10 yards left and right. Maybe he's forward if you're lucky. But that's it. Play the way you're facing. Don't try and break the lines. Which, again, as Sunderland fans, we have been so used to in the last however long. Roberts, like the reverse passes that he can put in between the fullback and the centre half, it's class. Samed is not that guy. He is not that guy. I can tell you from a mile off after seeing him for 25 minutes against Stoke in the FA Cup. He is an athlete, or he will be an athlete when he's fit and when he catches up. But he just needs to be sat behind the three in front of him. And there's an argument for my end. I know you said about sticking him on the wing, but playing through the middle, because the delivery that Lafay has and the cleverness and the foresight, we've seen it in spells already, and he's only been here 3 games. That pass from Isidore when he was out on the left wing at Burnley, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's what it is. I think he's just shoehorned him in. Probably a little bit of loyalty towards Bellingham, towards Rigg, towards Neil, because of how good they've been this year. And you've got to remember that. They might have had a couple of dud games, but they've been fantastic. And I think it's a bit of respect, and also the fact that he's just got that much confidence in Lafay that I can put him anywhere and he will do me a job. I can understand why he thinks that, but maybe he's Reggie. And again, we're talking about thinking of an overall picture. This is Labry's first season in English football. It's a completely different entity to French football. It's completely different for everything. That's why everyone calls it the most exciting football in the world, albeit the Premier League. There's so much to think about that this might just make him reassess, and I'm sure he will. That's how he comes across to me. And I've no doubt we've still got to see the best of Lafay. I've no doubt we've still got to see the best of Labry. I ain't panicking yet, that's for sure.
No, there's not a panic from my side, because I think ultimately that I do feel that those 2 points being dropped are going to cost us automatics. I'm not going to deny that. I think I've seen it too many times this season where we've dropped 2 points or dropped a point. I think it's going to become a recurring theme, and it's going to end up landing in the playoffs. But over 3 games in the playoffs, like I'm confident of that. I think I'm kind of more used to just thinking, I think it might be the playoffs at this point. I think the next few games have got a lot on them, though, in terms of that, because that 11-point cushion that we have over the playoffs can quickly change if you lose against Borough and you lose against Leeds and you duff it up against Watford. I think ultimately we need to look at that as games to show that we've still got something about ourselves, and that Plymouth game's not going to absolutely kill us. But there was a couple of underperformers yesterday. Before we move on to the next game and kind of try and get this out of our system and just say, look, it's done now and move on, Pete. We've praised him to the absolute hilt, but I thought Chris Mepham was arguably the worst player on the pitch yesterday. We've touched on Job, and I agree with you on that, but Mepham just wasn't at it yesterday. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've referred to him as the best centre half I've ever seen play for Sunderland, and based on the games I said that about, I still believe it. Yesterday, he didn't show what he can do. He didn't put in the performances of the standard that he set. And how many times have we said this season? When there has been poor performances from players, it's not because the crap footballers. We're saying the poor performances because they have showed us the standard to which they can play, and they've dropped down from that. And that was Chris Mepham yesterday. I mean, look, to start off with, I was saying how much I love him, how calm he is on the ball, how he does this, how he does that, how he does the other. But it was a comedy of errors, particularly for the second goal at the back there. And obviously Patterson is getting the absolute pelters for being concreted, rooted, nailed, tied down, superglued, whatever he was, to his line. But yeah, look, there's massive questions to be asked of Mepham. for that one also from Luke O'Neill. And it's a look. I'm still of the belief though that Chris Mepham is such a solid professional footballer of such a caliber that that won't be repeated. It's certainly not in that next game. I think there's a professional self-respect about Chris Mepham that you will see. You'll see Chris Mepham, the Chris Mepham next week. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Mepham line up alongside Ballard at the start.
We discussed that the other week about, do you put O'Nien next to Mepham or do you go with Ballard and Mepham? And I think there was quite a bit of conversation surrounding that, and people kind of just narrowly said O'Nien and Mepham. I think Mepham, despite the fact he had a bad game yesterday, it's the first of hopefully that's the only bad performance he has this season. But I feel like I would normally have said O'Nien next to him because I feel like O'Nien brings the ball out. I think he offers us an awful lot. I think his range of passing is good. I actually think O'Nien, in terms of his technical quality, is quite underrated. But over the last month, and I'll even tie Dennis Cirkin into this to be completely honest with you, I think the performance.
Well, that was going to be me.
Yeah, they've been below par. Do you potentially not leave O'Nien out? You leave Cirkin out. You put O'Nien on the left, and you put Ballard in the centre.
Well, what we seem to understand from the mentalities of them is that Dennis Cirkin, when he isn't 100%, isn't 100% the player. Now, look, the lad's wearing a pot on his wrist still. We know he's in and out. His form's not being wonderful. I think we cannot lump the blame for yesterday on Dennis Cirkin. But coming up against Middlesbrough, who will view that as a derby, despite whatever we view of them, they will view it as a big game. I think you need that little bit of worky ticket, windy upness of Luke O'Nien against them. I mean, by the way, we want to talk about that game could be 7-7 against Borough. You see, they're defending for the second goal against them yesterday. The absolute comedy of errors. But yeah, I would be inclined to put Ballard in, put O'Nien on the left. We know the lad can be there, and we know he can play there. That left-footed switch, that left-footed cross ball. It would be called a get big hoof unless you dress it up as like things like a left-footed cross ball.
A diag.
I think that's such a dangerous diag that gives us such a great out ball. I think with the pace that is in Sunderland's forward line, whether it's Meander or whether it's Isidore, there's nobody in that league and any defenders catching him. But you can release them with that long ball, with that diag. And for who he is as a person, what Sunderland Football Club clearly means to him, what Sunderland Association Football Club, I pull people up on that all the time, what Sunderland Association Football Club clearly means to him, I think you want him on the pitch. And I don't think Dennis Cirkin would be too, I don't want to say disappointed, but I think he can't be too upset if he was to miss out in the starting lineup against Middlesbrough with that. What I do think following that match yesterday, the other day, is I think it does give Lebris the chance to go, right, well, none of yous are in this team on merit at the moment because you're only as good as your last performance. None of yous, apart from Lafay, he can hold his head up. He was class. He's a different gravy, isn't he? He's a cut above.
I'd say Wilson.
I think you can see him move. I haven't moved on to him yet. He's me big positive. I bloody love that boy. He's got under my skin more than anybody I can remember, man. He's that finish from him. It's barely on that for him to finish the way he did. Somebody who runs with such intensity from the first whistle until the moment he's knackered, and he did have to come off when he came off. I don't agree with the substitute either.
No,
for that,
I mean,
when you saw him, you could see him going. We're playing 5-4-1. I'm going, oh, Leo, please tell me you cannot count. Please tell me you've heard that wrong. I've seen that wrong. But anyway, but no, Wilson Isidore's he's got me. I'm well under his spell, and I do hope I would be over the moon if that was to be turned into a permanent deal this window. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what comes of that. But yeah, I think obviously Wilson will play where Wilson plays because that's the best player and he's the best striker at the club. Of course. Anyway, we, I've got full faith. I've got enough faith in Regis Lebris that wasn't anywhere near the standard he wants Sunderland to play at. He's got enough time on the training field to get him and the rest of the training, the coaching staff, to say what Dave said. They're very good at what they do. We've got to remember that. We love to talk about this stuff. People listening love to have a bit chat about what's all the fans love to have a bit going on about what's going on. These lads are paid millions and millions and millions to actually do it. They know what they're doing. They know that wasn't up to the standard, and they will put that right by the time we play the Borough. I was about to say by the time we beat the Borough, and I am actually going to go back and change that. By the time we beat the Borough, while I'm watching it at some god awful time in the morning in my mother-in-law's front room in Shanghai, Reggie Lebris will have sorted that out.
I'm going to be on. And it brings me to the next question and the final question. There's tons of stuff we've missed. There's the substitution at the end. I don't think we can say much more about it. You don't go five at the back when you try. I don't like this hanging on thing. I think
no.
But the one thing I wanted to end on, I'll come to you, Dave, and then we'll go to you, Pete, on it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not that confident about Borough. I'm just not. But the next 5 fixtures are Borough away, Watford at home, Luton at home under a new manager. Didn't really do much yesterday. Like Leeds away, Hull at home under a new manager. For automatic promotion to still be a possibility by the end of February, which is what it would be by that point. Really straightforward question, Dave. How many points does need to come out with that?
12, I think.
I've said 11, but if one of those wins comes against Leeds, we can negate that.
Yeah, exactly. I think 12 will 4 wins out of them, 5 will tell you that we mean business. That's me. 10 probably wouldn't be the worst in the world. It keeps up the 2 points a game average. Yeah, it certainly can't be any more than 1 defeat, no matter how the rest of the results play out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the home games need to be won. I think we at least need to be looking to get 2 draws from Borough and Leeds. If we can get a win against Leeds, we can maybe negate a draw elsewhere in that 1 game in 5 where you maybe don't play at your full tilt. But Peter asked the same question to you before we sign off. How many do we need from that for not promotion, the automatic promotion charges? There'll be a possibility.
12 points we need from that, because you've seen Sheffield United. Chris Wilder will have Sheffield United back from that defeat that they conceded against Hull. But beat Leeds, I'll go with 11 or 10 because obviously how it changes things there. But really 12. I think this is going to be a very intense run-in, and it's going to come right down to the wire. And God forbid we are in May and going, what could have been, what could have been, what could have been. Get 12 points from those 15 available. I think we can gloss over some of the problems that we've had recently.